Everyone for showing up to talk about our career development plan. Glad to see you all. I am recording this. I'm going to start by sharing my screen and we're just going to go ahead and go to Blue Line. A couple of ways to get to this, but if you just go to the assignments link, there's our Zoom sessions, our discussions, and there's our data-based career needs development plan. I think this links to the same place as what you would see in the module. I think you can get at it from there too. And the rubric is listed here. So I'll just go over the instructions real quick. I'm not going to read it word for word because you can do that on your own. But the first thing you'll notice is it says using your school data profile. So you all have one. It's important to use this. Even if for some reason it has not been updated, it's still good to start your paper with this because you're writing a career development plan specific to your school. Okay. And although when you're watching each other's short videos this week, you're getting lots of cool ideas for career programming. If it doesn't make sense for your school, you're not going to want to put that in there. So this assignment encourages consultation with your colleagues and your principal, because there may be needs that aren't obvious that you haven't maybe seen yet in the data school profile. You can ask things like, where do graduates go after graduation, and whether career needs include employment or going on to college. Depending on your school, college going is not, doesn't happen as often at some other schools, right? So you want to focus on some of those alternative plans. But even if you're in a school that has highly emphasized college going, most of you in your videos that I've watched have talked about those alternate plans too, like not overemphasizing college because other pathways are just as valuable and maybe more valid for your students. So you have both formal and informal information, your data profile and talking to people that you'd be collaborating with. So you might be in a school, like some of you are in schools that already have a very well-developed career development plan. You don't have to start over with your own ideas of a career development plan because it's for your school. So a great deal of your paper might be describing the development plan that's already there. But use your own creativity too and look for gaps and think about things that you could add into that plan. This does say that there's 50 points for this paper, but I think it's different for Dr. Buonasi's class. So don't get thrown off by that. I think our rubric is the same. So there's a document, it's cleverly named web-based document that discusses the idea of a comprehensive developmental counseling program. And it has 3 components, and you're going to want to have these as headers in your paper: content, organizational framework, and resources. Okay, you're going to want those headers. And if you look at this web-based document by Geisbers, it'll explain what that is. But there's a little explanation here too that I'm going to go ahead and read. So content refers to the desired student knowledge and skills, or more specifically, self-knowledge and interpersonal skills, life roles, settings and events, and life career planning. So all of that falls under content. Organizational framework refers to the structural components of your program itself, or how the program connects to other school programs and what are its principles and goals. Organizational framework also encompasses the 4 program components of ASCA: curriculum, individual planning, responsive services, and system support. So those are just different ways that as counselors, we address the needs of students. So you could include those different ways of meeting student needs. Finally, the human, financial, and political resources necessary for the model's functioning are outlined. Now, it doesn't have to be very complex there. You can talk about um, maybe securing a grant to boost your program. You might talk about money that's already allocated to your program that you would earmark for that. It might just be as simple as talking about what resources you have for curriculum, right? That you already have, or finding a curriculum online that's free. It doesn't have to be about the money. So any kind of resources related to your plan, that's where you would put that. Okay, let's see. And then I'm going to go to the modules and just make sure that it looks the same when we come at it from this side. So it's in week 8. And here it is. And yep, it's the same. Okay. I've had some trouble with that with Blue Line, where I fix a date or something in one place and then I find out it's in another place too, and it didn't get updated, but those are the same. So get busy writing on this plan, have all those components in it, make it suited to your school and also to how you see yourself as a career counselor. Include some of your own self-reflection on, like, maybe some of the things that you said in your video of why it's important to you, and different aspects of career counseling that matter to you. And so that's what you want to do as a counselor, and that's what you want to have in your programming. And then one last thing I wanted to show you is the abundance of resources and links in week 7, things that you can look at here to help with your paper. There's Pause in Jobland for elementary school. The Department of Labor has some great resources that I think you'd like. Of course, you're all members of ASCA. They have specific documents in there. I think it's under, is it called their white papers? Policy papers. There's 2 of them, one for career and tech education and one for career development. It'd be very helpful to you. Find your state Department of Education, what they require for career education, use that. And just some other things there that you can use. You're not limited to this, but there's ample things there. You can help one another with this too when you find resources. I know y'all share in like Facebook pages. Don't be afraid to share your resources and ideas. But when you do your writing, remember it's specific to your school. Okay, I think I'm done sharing. And I'm gonna put us on a gallery view here so I can see all your faces. What questions do you have? What concerns? What ideas?
So just out of just curiosity thinking here, so like my school, what we do is we actually start with the middle school in a 5-star program. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
So what we do is we get them incorporated into the high school. We start getting them thinking about, hey, this is what high school life is going to be like. For about a week, the kids come over, they do activities, they do fun things like that, kind of get familiarized with the building, the locker situation, things like that. Then they talk about, we have our honor students talking to the class, stating that this is what student life is about. You need to focus on classes, you need to focus on college bound orientation, focusing that way. And then they schedule classes for the freshman year. Then at the end of the freshman year, actually, currently right now, our counselors are taking all of the freshman class and we are working with them to schedule the rest of their classes for sophomore, junior, and senior year to kind of get them orientated to college. Then we're also then taking them, that is our 5-star program. And then our career counselor then talks to them about career orientation and what they want to do, getting them ready for the testing and things like that. So am I correct doing that sort of mind of thinking?
Yes, yes, you're outlining what's already there, and you mentioned resources. You mentioned people that are already hired specifically for certain aspects of that that you would collaborate with. So just describe all that, just like you did, and then go into more detail about things that aren't there after you've described that, things that you think should be there. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah, sounds good.
Um, I have a question. So I'm in an elementary school. I teach in an elementary school. So it's what we don't really focus obviously on college career stuff quite yet. The one thing I was thinking is that we do have in our district, we've got 4 kind of, we call them college and career readiness skills. So it's like critical thinking and problem solving, creativity and innovation, collaboration and teamwork, and then citizenship and personal responsibility. So those are like the standards, and then there's substandards underneath each of those that each of our kids, that's kind of where we do the S, the N, the E. So, and I've been in contact even with my daughter's counselor in high school. I've been in contact with the counselor she had in middle school. He's sent me a few things, but it's hard. I guess I'm kind of struggling with, I'm in the elementary mindset.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just kind of, can I use the college and career readiness skills that we do as their teachers at the elementary level, and then base, like, because my counselor at my school, he's like, I have no idea what you're even talking about. This is completely new to me. I don't even know how to help you.
Yeah.
So can I use those and like those sub bullet, like the whatever you call them, underneath each standard to kind of base this on?
Yes, I think that would be great. And I'll just invite you to, as you're reading through some of these resources, to think a little more broadly about how it could look. It sounds like career and college readiness is not focused on at all at the elementary school you're at, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, no.
But actually, there are many schools that do have a heavy focus in the elementary school and do it quite well, because the elementary school is a time to broaden people's understanding of the world, right? You're kind of exploring the world and what's out there. So just an example is have a college day in elementary school and let them wear their favorite colors of their favorite college teams or something like that. And not
Right.
every kid would want to do that, but you can have supplemental things for those kids that don't know what you're talking about, just to expose them to it, right?
Uh-huh.
And then there are really great little career exploration things that pause in Jobland. It's really great for even kindergartners, just to
Okay.
explore the world and get their mind beyond just what their mom or dad or big sister or grandma does for a living, and see that there's lots of options. That's the beauty of elementary school counseling.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm just trying to figure out how to put this all together in that age.
Yeah. So I actually love career counseling at the elementary level. I think it's really great fun. And there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration. If you talk to teachers about things that they're teaching, usually like in social studies, you can find ways to insert career options into those studies that are already standing. You don't even have to be the one giving it. Just hand it over to the teacher that's teaching that. And it's a great way to increase career development at the elementary age.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
My first one is, as far as the school data profile, I was one of those schools where they really don't track data. So I have their graduation rate, but I don't have any idea how many go to college versus how many go to career.
Yep.
So, how should I note that, or should I note that?
Yes, you should note that. You should note anything that you can say about your school to give us a frame of reference. And then the gaps that are there might be things that you may or may not think is important. Like maybe as a counselor, you'll start tracking where kids go afterwards so that you have data to back up what you really want to do for career development.
Okay. And then the second part is, I want to talk about some of the things that they do already have, like they do a career assessment test in 10th grade. They do a career academy for juniors and seniors. Like my son is in one. It's an EMT program. And so like by the time he graduates this year, he'll have his EMT certificate. It's all through the community college. And then they have dual credit classes so they can get college credits for like $50 a credit hour instead of like $300 credit hour. And then they also have a college fair that they have colleges come in. And so I want to be able to talk about all of those, but I guess I kind of still don't understand as far as the 3 different headings, what goes where. Would those things go in the content or in the organizational framework? I don't understand.
I think, well, I think it could be done different ways, but from what I hear you saying, it seems like you're talking about content, like what they're getting,
Mhm.
whether they're getting exposure to more, or they're getting college credits. That's content. And then the organizational framework is more like, the way I understand it, when it happens, like saying what happens from each section of your plan at different ages. The organizational framework might be who does what for who. It's not just you delivering career development. It's a combination of people. So that's my understanding of it. But you guys need to understand that this is my first time to teach this class. So I'm just going off of what it says too and what makes sense to me.
I mean, are we locked into doing those? Because I guess if I was going to
Yeah.
organize it, what I would want to do is to lay out what all they have. And then I would want to lay out like what the changes are that I would do and what I would like to add. And then I could lay out my resources as my 3rd section.
So I think you can have more than just these headings and lay it out that way, but it should include those components as described, if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense to you I think it's okay if it falls under different headings, but it should still all be there.
Right. Because I figured in my content, I'm already going to be talking about how it's organized. I'm going to be talking about what grades and when they do it and how they do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know about having them as 2 different sections.
Yeah. Okay. So those of you that are in Dr. Abuanasi's class, when I say things like that to Jennifer, like, okay, I could see reorganizing it like that as long as it's there. He might not feel that way. He might be more like, nope, it needs to go in this section and this section, this section. So take my words with a grain of salt when I say things like that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you want the school data profile included as an appendix?
You could, if you're referring to a lot of it and want to have it right there. You don't have to, depends on your paper. But you should definitely be including information from it in your introduction.
So tied to the school data profile, I'm actually planning on working within the middle school that I've been doing my observation with. And so the data I'm looking at is actually more the district data of where the high school seniors are going, their graduation rates. We're really fortunate in the state of Washington that there's a really good database that shows outcomes. So we can see how many are enrolling, how many are getting degrees within 8 years, how many finished, which is kind of how I'm understanding, are we successfully doing career when 78% of kids from this district end up with no degree in 8 years? But again, it's not necessarily the middle school, it's district-wide, statewide data. Is that acceptable to use that to kind of see maybe how our kids are filtering into the career college arena?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, that's very relevant data. Could
Okay.
include that for sure. Still give a shout out to your data school profile.
Okay, got it. I think I tried to include some of it as far as like the filter of like, this isn't technically middle school, but in the district, this is what happens to them eventually within the next 20 years.
Yeah. Some of the things from your data school profile that might be relevant are things like if if 95% of your students are going to be first generation college going students, that's an important part of your programming, right? And then also how important those other avenues of post-secondary success are as well, depending on where your school is and what's available.
Would you see ninth graders on track? Would that be tied to kind of that career college preparation?
I think so.
So for the state of Washington, we have what's called report card, and it gives data points for each of the schools within the state. And one of the things that they track is what they say is ninth grade on track, meaning this percentage of ninth graders are on track to graduate successfully within 4 years. And surprisingly, across the state, that number is pretty low. But I'm not sure if that's necessarily just tied to more academic or potentially career college counseling. I just don't know if those two things are connected.
Wasn't it you that had that great quote in your video that education is career education?
Yes.
Yeah. So
All the
academics
same.
academics is part of career development. So yeah, it's definitely tied together. Just word it that way in your paper.
Perfect.
What
Okay,
other
Matthew,
questions you have?
one more question. Sorry, guys. The three, I don't know if you guys are doing this, and I don't know if for the Zoom meeting, that the mandatory one, are you asking them to do 3 to 5 key points and lessons learned from?
Yep.
What the heck am I doing?
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm legit like, I haven't even started, so I can't really
yeah.
figure that out for Monday.
So unfortunately, you guys have to do it Monday and my students don't do it till the following week. But I can tell you that if you just go from the things you talked about in your discussion post and just pick 3 key things that matter to your school and tell about that, I'm sure that's what he's talking about. That's what I'm looking for. We don't want it to be long. We just want to hear you talk about the importance of career development, what it's going to look like in your school, and I don't know, what are some gaps? Those are just 3 ideas.
Okay, because our video that we did, maybe I completely butchered my video, but I thought our video was on, my papers are all falling, was on why a career in counseling is important.
Yeah.
That's where I'm like, okay, maybe that's not, like, guess I read that as, why is it important to have a career as a counselor? Maybe I totally butchered that assignment.
Oh yeah, I could see where you would get that idea.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then based off of what I mean, I legit wrote everything. Sorry, I'm like dropping everything. I mean, I legit wrote all my answers down. I think I totally butchered this whole entire thing.
You
Okay.
didn't butcher it. That's still a good thing to talk about, but it doesn't really help you for this next leg of it, does it?
No.
You know
All
what I
right.
think will help you, Tara, is listening to other people's. I took somebody's presentation from one section and added it to the other class to hear, because she's at this school that has a great career development plan across K-12, and she listed out all these amazing activities. Now, nobody would need all of those, probably, I don't know, but you can get ideas from it and say, oh, our school could really use that. And so listening to each other's can be very helpful.
Okay. Thanks.
And we'll listen to yours, Tara, to hear about how important our career is. I love it.
Do we have a good example of this particular paper somewhere laid out so we can see the layout of it?
Well, I asked for that. Dr. Abonasi said that he doesn't like to do that anymore because people were just not being creative then. They think that if they just followed this, then they would get an A, and it usually didn't work well. But I said, I've never taught this class, and I kind of want to see what one looks like. So he sent me a couple to look at, but I think they might be students that you know, so I can't actually share it with you. But I read them before meeting with you and saw that it's laid out APA, just like just like all your other papers. It has the title at the top, you have your title page, your abstract, title at the top of the third page, an introductory paragraph. Then they have those 3 headings that we read about, and then a summary, and then a reference page. So just like what you'd expect. And the papers that he gave me were quite different in what they put in the content and resources, because it's from a very different school, which is why I guess putting exemplary papers up there may not be helpful because of that, because they can be very different and still be very good. If you use your school data and talk about everything you know about what's already in place, talk about gaps that you see, give some ideas for new programming, cite any sources, you're going to have a great paper.
So I have a quick question on just kind of the paper itself. This could be either or. So one option, doing kind of a program that would be for 3 years. So starting at a middle school, in 6th grade, this is what we're going to do. In 7th grade, this is what we're going to do. In 8th grade, this is what we're going to do, all helping support this major goal within high school, which ideally leads to this outcome. So kind of walking through an entire curriculum of career planning.
Yes.
Could another option then be, for example, I found at Bremerton High School, the high school I'm at is high first gen. They struggle the most with FAFSA completion, but a lot of it is because of terminology issues, getting parents to understand the context within the FAFSA. Could you then more specialize in, we have first gen, this is an issue, so I'm creating a program specifically to target FAFSA completion, and that's what we're going to focus on, but not necessarily highlighting, here's all the other things we're doing in context, but because I see this data issue, I want to create this one specific program.
Yes.
Okay.
How is
So
that
it's like
different?
two
from
very
your-
different ideas, but both could work. Because one is very like program this specific lesson plan, but because I want to fit this big, data point. The other one is here's an overall curriculum for 3 years.
You need both, because you have to describe the program that's there, and then you can zero in on the gap that you want to focus on the FAFSA.
Got it. So kind of saying this is already what's being done to help
Yep.
students get prepared, but I'm seeing there's still this gap here. So I want to focus, and this is how I'm going to do that.
Yes. Yep. So use
Ooh.
both. Yep.
Okay.
But if we're at a high school, we don't need to talk about from kindergarten up, right? We can just talk about.
That's a question that was just in my head, and I kind of want to go back and look and see how it's written, but because I thought that you're supposed to look K-12, but maybe not. Does anybody else have a different idea from what we read?
It said K-12 up at that one part, but then everything else just referenced the school you're at. And most of us are going to either be at an elementary or a high school. Like you'd have to be in a really small town to be K through 12. So the school I'm at is a high school.
Yeah, I think it's talking about the school as a whole, and we want to hear about the developmental ways that we address career K-12, but you might zero in for your gap at the school where you are, the elementary school.
Okay.
But you need to give an overview of K-12. I'm pretty sure of that.
Any ideas then if we don't, I don't have an in necessarily at the elementary or the middle schools. I don't know who I would talk to find that out.
Your counselors do.
Okay.
They all work together. So your counseling team would definitely know what's going on at the other level.
They would.
They
Okay.
have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tara. And this is a paper that emphasizes you need to collaborate with some other key stakeholders here. So you're going to have to reach out to people that you may not know. But yeah, Tara's right. Your counselor will know who it'll be.
And Jennifer, another idea is, as Dr. Powers was mentioning, state guidelines, looking at your state requirements for career development, they articulate every grade level what has to happen. And those standards have to be met. You can even just pull that saying at the elementary school, these standards are being met because they legally have to be. And then, as Tara mentioned, getting information from the counselor, collaboration of exactly how they're implementing that. But that's a great place to start to find out what your state requires at each level.
Yeah,
What
thank
website
you.
would I go to for that? The state guidelines for career development?
Go to the Nebraska. I can send you the link. I had and I think it's on there too, but I know like the middle school counselor that I talked to, because you're in Nebraska, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, because the middle school counselor I talked to, he sent me some screenshots of some really good things, and I actually went through and went into the website, and it's through the Nebraska Department of Education, but there's a specific career development, like specific I don't know what you call it, website that it links you directly to it. So I can send that to you or
That'd
just
be
post it, because I printed a ton of different resources. No idea if I'll use them all, but it worked.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you, Tara. Is
Yeah.
it different than the Nebraska link that's on the resources for
Well,
next week?
So I'm kind of like, I've got like double screen going on here, and I'm kind of looking at that. And this one, no, it's not necessarily that it's different. It's just I was able to narrow it down to like the standards, like the career readiness. I'm looking at it right now. I'm like, there's a career readiness standards. I've looked at the toolkit. He sent me some of the things that deal with they're called, what is it, career clusters or something like that. And it's basically like their core academics, and it has it's like basically a poster that I would show to you. I don't know how to show it to you, but it's the same website, but I've just zoomed in and narrowed in on more of the things that he showed me and told me where to go to.
So can you put the, where'd
Can
you
I-
go? I lost-
Me?
Tara. Oh, there you are. You just moved on my
Oh,
screen.
sorry. I was like, I'm right here.
Can you put the website in our chat?
Yeah. Let me, so like if I go to the career, I'll just do like the career readiness standards. It's that same link, but I'm just like narrowing in on this one. Hold on, let me see if this will work. So the career readiness standards, that's something I printed off. That was really, I thought, beneficial. Yeah, this is the one that he sent to me that he uses with the model poster, and it has different pathways that they can take. That might help. And so those were kind of two of the biggest things, but if you go there and just go down to the career development part, that's where I found a lot of the stuff
Okay.
that would work the best, I thought.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. And you
Sure.
know, you guys, the ASCA model has outlined career standards very well too in the ASCA national standards. Please use those. They're good. Don't just use those, but that's one of them that you should definitely refer to. So sort of a guideline of how long this should be. I think it's expected it would be about 10 pages. Is that right? Carrie, you're shaking your head. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, for Dr. G's class, he said without title page and abstract and reference page, 8 to 10 pages of content.
Okay, so that's a good guideline for us too. I'm not gonna insist that it be that long, because sometimes people are very concise in their writing and say all that needs to be said, and I don't want you to fill it up just to fill up another page. But that's a good guideline, 8 to 10 pages. That way you have all of the components of your school data profile, any other data, your state standards, the ASCA standards, who you've collaborated with, what's already in place at your schools, what are the gaps, what are the activities you want to add in, what are the resources. Like, yeah, it should be a good 8 to 10 page paper.
Can we reference and bullet point some of those?
What?
standards? Can we, when we, like within the content of our paper, can we reference the standards and like bullet point them?
Well, that's a good question. You know, you could fill up a whole paper with just writing all the different standards. So I wouldn't say just do a bullet point of all the different standards you found, but you can bullet point the ones that you want to zero in on. Maybe highlight the ones that you think you're doing a good job of referencing, and maybe pick a few that you think are gaps that you could strengthen. That would be good.
Thank you.
So I know you went through this at the beginning, but I'm kind of, I wrote my ARP about this. I'm super focused on this. It's like kind of my wheelhouse,
Right.
but I'm a little bit confused just with the framework of it. So sorry, not to use framework twice, but like the difference, what content means. Just the description in the assignment is
Yeah.
really confusing.
Well, let's look at it again, and maybe maybe together we can put it into our own words and simplify it. Okay.
Thanks.
So I'll share the screen again and we'll go back.
Oh,
to-
okay, great.
Yeah, I have the same question, Tara, because I'm trying to figure out the difference between components and content. I kind of have an idea of what I'll do for organizational framework, but I'm like, what's the difference?
Yeah. So let's look at it again. So content. It's your desired student knowledge and skills. So it's their outcomes. What do you want them to know? More specifically, their self-knowledge, their interpersonal skills, their life roles. I don't know what they mean by settings and events, and life career planning. So it's all about how you want the student to grow is the content. That's the way I understand it. And then the organizational framework is the structural components of the program, or how it connects to other school programs, the principles and goals. It encompasses. Okay, so to me, the organizational framework is how are you delivering it? Is it coming for this age group at this time? Is it during your counseling class time when you go in? Is it special events where you invite people in? Is it during their library time? What is it? And at the middle school, what does it look like there? How does it happen? Who delivers it? And what does it look like? And then again at the high school. So the organizational framework it lists those things. Is it your curriculum when you go into the classroom? Is it individual planning when you meet one-on-one with students? Is it responsive services? Is it system support? Is it something you do as a whole system? And the final is about resources. So I feel like there's overlap. I don't feel like you can completely talk about just content without talking about what age level you're talking about or who's delivering it. So I can see why you're confused, but I also see that there is a difference in it, and you could focus in on what you want your students to learn during the content part, and then how are they going to learn it during the organizational framework part. Anybody have any other clarifying words that make sense to you, that make it easier to understand?
Is that what the tips are? I'm looking, I don't know how well you can see it. It's these like the tips that he posted. I don't know if you have that.
Let's look. If it's there, it's probably under the modules, under the resources, right?
That's where it was under our week. Oh, I'm in the wrong
Oh, I'm in the wrong week.
thing. I was gonna say I'm in the wrong website.
Okay, data tips.
Yeah, it was. I don't even know what it was titled. But because he has it laid out. He's got components as one, content, organization, framework, and resources. It was on, where am I at here? Where am I at? Week 8. Yeah, it was under our week 8 tips for the career development plan.
Oh, I kind of want to see that.
I wonder if I click on it.
I think I can go to your
down?
class. Hang on.
Okay, I was gonna say, can I somehow download it and put it in?
I just asked him for access to the class. He just added me yesterday. So let's go look at it.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks. That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know, because this is where I was a little on the last paper. I wrote my paper based on the rubric and these tips. Like they were almost two completely different things. So that's where I was like, I better just cover all of it.
The tips were so helpful on the last
I agree. I really enjoyed the tips from the last one.
Yeah.
Minus the red writing.
Yeah.
I don't see tips.
Are you
It
in
was,
the
it was in week 8. If you
week
go back
8?
up to
It was
week
the
8,
very last one.
very bottom.
Right there.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So I don't know if that those kind of really broke it down a little bit more for me anyway, but does that mean we have to have components as one of our headings too?
No, I think he means the components. I think that's misleading. It has a bullet by it, but I think the components are content, framework, or resources.
Okay, yeah, this is the OCD teacher in me like freaking out right now going, oh my gosh.
You know, I might be wrong. I'm going to look at the example paper and see if
Okay.
components is something separate.
So the
Oh,
way that I heard you guys explaining it in my own words, this is how I'm breaking up these 3 pieces. Components, I know nothing about the tips, so ignore that. But content is the outcomes. So exactly what you want the student to know. What is the goal of the program? Organizational framework is how is it being delivered? How are you implementing the goal? How will you achieve the goal specifically? And then the resources, what is needed to implement it?
Yeah.
Money, personnel, technology. Do you need a program that students will access? Is it time for individual counseling? So that's the notes that I wrote is content is the outcome, desired outcome, organizational framework. How is it actually going to be delivered? And then resources, what is needed to implement. Does that
Sounds
sound
great.
Great.
That sounds great.
And then components, let's assume components is your introduction.
I was just going to say that because when I read the description, I felt like it was saying the components are content, organizational. And in this, it kind of looks like it's a general overview of all of it. So it's like it's like an introduction. Great minds think alike, Kara.
Tara, can you say what you said about content one more time, please?
Absolutely. So for content, I wrote outcomes, what you want the student to know. What are the goals for the program?
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense to me. And these tips are nice. I'll steal this and post it for my classes too.
And then Dr. Powers, I did have another question. I teach in a middle school in OPS, and they actually just came out with a updated like 2 or 3 days ago career plan, like specifically for high school, but
Did I mute you? How did I do that? I just clicked stop share and then everybody went muted. What does this mean?
You can unmute.
Can you all unmute? Okay. I don't know how that happened. I'm sorry, Shelby. Will you unmute and tell me again what's going on at the middle school?
no, you're fine. I work for OPS in a middle school, and they just came out with like a brand new updated career readiness plan just for the district, like in general. And so do you think it's acceptable that I use that, like kind of introduce like what their plan is, but then kind of talk about like what we do at the middle school, which is not a lot, but like, is that okay to use just to include that piece of what we are doing in our building, even though it's not like the whole idea is for the district?
Yeah, definitely
Okay.
use that. That sounds great.
Okay.
Yep. Again, I would just say anything that's going on in your school, include that in your paper, K-12, right? And then anything that isn't going on that you think should be, tell us about that.
That was my other question. Where is the K-12 referenced? I went back and reread it. I didn't see it
Out
anywhere.
there.
No.
Okay, so that'll be, I'll ask, you guys call him Dr. G? Okay, so Dr. G,
Yeah,
I'll
when I
ask him.
seen the
Okay,
instructions,
because that's a big difference.
Yeah, when I was
Don't worry.
reading the instructions at the top when we were going back through it, I was like, oh, it definitely sounds like it's supposed to be just your school. I don't know.
When you say just your school, do you mean your school building?
Yeah.
Okay, because when I think of just your school, I think of my district.
Because
My
it talks
district
about-
is like 14 schools.
yeah, and it talks about your principal.
But isn't there a comprehensive plan across your district? Do you have different career plans in each school?
Yeah,
At
like
the
our
level, there
elementary
might be a
level.
but it would be very generic. It would be not specific. If there was one, if I could dig it up, it would be like a super generic, like bulleted PowerPoint, probably. There's
Okay.
no like meeting about this. There's no,
Wow.
My
Okay.
district has a really robust, comprehensive career and development program. The biggest component of ours is probably what I'll be talking about the most, which is our Next Move internship program that all of every school does in the whole district. And it's like helping them connect to intern opportunities for where they think they might like to work, to kind of help inform kind of what next level of education they should have. I think what I'm going to be talking about the most that like I want to change is that I've noticed in my school that the students who end up doing that program are like the most motivated and kind of have a lot of resources and are just kind of like, it's the same students over and over again, it seems like every year. And I think in mine, I'm planning on talking about how to expand it and include students that wouldn't normally be in the program. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I would like to.
That sounds great. And you know what? I don't think you have to have all the details worked out on your plan. Maybe just talk about who you'll need to collaborate with to make it happen. That sounds great, Carrie.
Carrie, is that all within high school or is that K through 12?
That program in particular is just high school, but I don't know much about our elementary schools, but our middle schools are doing what's called College Bound, and they also do some career and technical classes in middle school that they get high school credit for. So that's kind of where that's starting. I don't know what our elementary schools are doing. I'm pretty new to this district, so I don't know as much about the elementary schools, but yeah, it from what I know so far is that they're starting it in middle school.
So the reason I still am kind of stuck on this K-12 thing is, as school counselors, we need to have a comprehensive developmental program, counseling program, not just for our elementary school, but K-12, because we're leaders in the school, and you're not just helping your elementary school kids get an awareness. You're looking at their whole life is the way I look at it. So to not know what happens in middle school and high school, I feel like is a disservice to your elementary school kids. So maybe I'm making this bigger than it needs to be, but I still think you should talk to the counselors across the district, at least a middle school counselor and a high school counselor and an elementary school counselor, to know what happens developmentally across the span. And if there is no coordinated plan, that's something that y'all, might want to, you might want to put into your career development plan.
Thinking about it like that, I definitely understand that. If I was at the elementary, yeah, you're like the formational, you're starting it all. I guess from the opposite end, from the high school, it's like, well, by the time they get to me, what's been done in elementary, that's already done. Like, I can't do anything about that. I'm not preparing them for that. I think that's where maybe I'm a little bit.
But if you become a leader in your school, what happens at the elementary school will matter a lot to you.
Yeah.
If you have to introduce the basic career clusters when they're ninth graders, you're going to be spinning your wheels a lot. They should have some introduction to careers and colleges way before then. So I don't know. But this may just be my perspective. If you feel like I'm taking it too far and you want to check with Dr. Chi about that and just focus on your building, that's okay.
See, I'm in Millard, and I've just pulled up the college and career readiness. They have it's PK-12, college and career readiness standards and indicators, and it's like a matrix. And so it legit has in the table, it has like the concept that needs to be learned, and then it has 3 different columns, and then it has the PK through, oh my God, PK through 5, 6 through 8, and then 9 through 12, and how each level hits that particular concept. So like the ability to reason, solve problems, and make complex decisions. It has what they should do for each indicator underneath that for PK through 5. And then again, through how that's then moved to 6 through 8 and then moved to 9 through 12. So is that kind of what you're maybe talking about? Like, is that what we maybe could be looking at?
Well, I think that's a great reference. I mean,
I'm sorry, without you being able to see it, it's hard to explain it.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that you need to articulate all of that for your school. I'm just saying that a comprehensive developmental approach sees the whole student across the developmental span of the time they're in school. And I don't know, maybe that's just my perspective, but I just think it's really important. You know, if most of your paper is specifically about something you're going to do at your school, that's fine. But I still think that there should be some reference to what does it look like K-12? Do we talk at all? Is there any kind of scope and sequence? Because ASCA outlines it very well. And what Tara just said, it's outlined very well what people should learn at different stages. And if you're not doing that in your school, that's a gap.
I agree with you completely that it should be like a broad picture, but at the same time, we don't even have elementary school counselors, and we have 8 elementary schools. Not
Okay.
one. I mean, it's like a huge glaring gap, especially now that there's a pandemic and
Yeah.
60% of our kids are learning remotely. It's a disaster. But I much prefer the secondary level, but I almost want to focus on the elementary level, just knowing I probably will have a job in 2 years because they obviously have to fill this gap.
They do need to fill that gap. Yes.
Yeah, but that's how I know, just from like my experience working in the high school, that there's like pretty much nothing.
So that could just be one paragraph in your paper.
Okay.
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 Like
Thanks.
there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, but right now there isn't even counselors. And so that'll be, you know, that's a good first step. Let's get some counselors. But then the rest of your paper will be focused more on the middle school or secondary. All right. Any other questions for the good of everybody? We're about out of time.
This was super helpful. I really needed this, so thank you for doing this, Dr. Powers.
Yeah.
I'm happy to facilitate. I think the good work was a teamwork thing, and really appreciate y'all being here. It made it much more meaningful to have each one of you here.
Well, it made it very, 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 like a million times very helpful, because wow,
Good.
I was about ready to lose my mind.
Okay, well, we don't want that. You can do this. I believe in you. All right, well, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to shut off the recording first. So if you want to stay and ask some more specific questions, you can. But if you need to click off, that's okay. It's good to see you all.
Thank you so much.